away, making them seem small and dull. But that may be good news for the Democrats, because the GOP may have a very hard time coming together when the nominee is selected. Also, there's an over-the-top element to Trump's rhetoric and support. As we've reported, there's no question the Supreme Court decisions have upheld that portion of the 14th Amendment that says any person born in the USA is entitled to citizenship. The cases U.S. versus Wong Kim Ark and INS versus Rios Pineda both gave the Supremes a chance to refute the 14th Amendment, which says all persons born of naturalized or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. The Supreme Court clearly upheld the wording in both cases. And even though some are trying to parse the amendment, they will fail, and it's a waste of time. It also gives the left ammunition. A New York Times editorial today demonizes the Republican Party over Trump's immigration plan, which the Times calls despicable. The left hoping to turn defeat into victory by playing the race card and portraying Trump and the entire Republican Party as racist brutalizers. Now, there is a way to legally revoke the anchor baby law, and it should be done, as that law is undermining federal immigration. But there's also a way for Republicans to lose the upcoming election if they out-extreme their far-left counterparts. And that's a memo. Now for the top story tonight, reaction. Joining us from Washington, David Rifkin, an attorney who served in the Reagan and Bush, the elder administrations. And from Berkeley, California, John Yoo, teaches law at the University of California. So Yoo, I'm going to begin with you. You know, I don't know whether you listen to talk radio, but a lot of these guys are just going, oh, the 14th Amendment doesn't really say that, and it's the jurisdiction thereof, and, you know, they're basically saying that the Supreme Court has misinterpreted this amendment for 150 years. What do you say about that?
I think those hosts and Donald Trump are flat wrong. As you said in your talking points memo, the text of the 14th Amendment is clear. It says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States are subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens. This is not just the 14th Amendment. This has been the rule in American history since the founding of the Republic. The 14th Amendment was really just reversing one of the great stains of constitutional law, which was Dred Scott, where Roger Taney, in one of the cases that precipitated the Civil War, said that Congress could pick and choose who to make citizens or not, even though they were born here. And notoriously, the Supreme Court said free blacks could not be citizens.
But what is the jurisdiction thereof? What does that mean? Because that's what people are seizing upon to say everybody's wrong about the Supreme Court but them.
That's a good question. I mean, the phrase subject to the jurisdiction thereof also was just codifying common law practice from the beginning of the country, which meant to exclude the children of diplomats, the children of enemy soldiers on our territory, and then the biggest category then would have been Indian tribes, because Indian tribes were on our territory, but they weren't subject to the jurisdiction of the United States.
So right now, it's the people who live in embassies. They're the ones, they're not subject to U.S. law. People who live on Native American reservations, they have their own constitution and a few other exceptions. That's why that did. Now, do you concur with that, Mr. Rifkin?
Absolutely, and let me point out that this is one of the provisions in the Constitution whose original public meaning, which matters for those of us who are conservatives, is clear. Let me just say, during the debate over the measure that became the 14th Amendment, the House came in with a language that did not have this language. In the Senate, it was introduced by Senator Jacob Howard. Both proponents and opponents of this language understood what it meant. It was interesting because the political hot potato at the time was what to do with the Chinese laborers who were building railroads.
Yes.
So the opponents of this language were pointing out that if it passed, children born to the Chinese nationals in this country would become U.S. citizens.
And let me just stop you there, and that's the first case I cited, because a child who was born to a Chinese laborer, and again, as you rightly pointed out, they built the railroads, went back to China, and then tried to come back to the USA, and they wouldn't let him back in. And he sued, and it went to the Supreme Court saying, look, you can't bar me. I'm an American citizen born here, even though my parents weren't. And the Supreme Court clearly ruled that he was. But let's move it ahead now. Mr. Yoo, do you understand my point that the New York Times and other, and I'm going to call them far left because I do believe that paper is, all right, they're going to use this nativism, this anchor babies, you got to throw them out, you got to mass deportations. They're going to use this, right, to say you can't give power to the conservative Republicans, Donald Trump, whatever. Are they not?
I agree. You know politics much better than I do, but if I were a Democrat, that's what I would do, because it's a waste of time. The Constitution is not going to be amended to do this, and all it does is they could say it's returning us back to the terrible times of Dred Scott and the pre-Civil War period. That's why the 14th Amendment is one of the great achievements of the Republican Party, to make clear that everybody born in this country is a free citizen.
Do you feel Trump is making a mistake by harping on this?
I agree with you. I don't think Trump is a Republican. I think actually he's ruining the Republican Party, and he's opening a huge wedge issue for Democrats to
exploit.
See, I
disagree with you a little bit there. I think he is helping the Republican Party in some ways, but I think he's got to be careful, because the nativist sentiment can be turned around.
You always see the good in people.
Well, you know, when you're going to round up babies and throw them out of here, I mean, that's not going to work to any party's advantage. Mr. Richfin, do you see a danger that the rhetoric in this area goes over the top and helps the Democrats?
I do, but I also see the opportunity, Bill, to the extent we have a number of presidential candidates, including most prominently Jeb Bush, who are taking a robust position against this. This is a wonderful opportunity to differentiate themselves from the rest of the pack. So it depends on how this plays.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because coming up we have Marco Rubio, and we're going to ask him exactly this question. Gentlemen, very interesting. We appreciate you coming on this evening.